Sam Amick, he writes for The Athletic, the NBA senior writer. He was in attendance for both games last night. But let me start with the headline here. Steve Nash going to the Brooklyn Nets as a head coach. Who saw this one coming, Sam?
Well, we didn't, my friend. Yeah, Dan, they caught us off guard. I love the pick, to be honest with you. We all know the relationship between Steve and Kevin Durant from the Warriors days. I was around those teams a lot, and I tell you, like I look at Steve, and it's a genius move. He laid in the shadows and learned from people after retirement. Obviously, was a guy that wanted to get on the sideline at some point. But no, we didn't see it coming, and I do like it though, and I love the fact that Jacques Vaughn's still going to be there to be a major part of what they're doing. But I give it a big thumbs up.
But explain that relationship with Steve Nash and Kevin Durant and Golden State.
So Kevin, is a guy who certainly kind of gives a tip of the cap to the greats. He does talk to a lot of them, and is a basketball scientist, so to speak. And so Steve and him clicked a lot during the Warriors days. I forget Steve's exact title. It was basically consultant advisor, but dear friend of Warriors coach Steve Kerr's, and somebody who, when the cameras weren't watching, would spend time in the off season, would spend time intermittently during the season with Kevin, and just vibing in the kind of way that only so many people on this planet can from a basketball perspective. And I like it for Kevin because honestly, I just said this to somebody in a chat I had, most of his Warriors relationships seemingly, it kind of had this sense that there was a burned bridge there from that chapter in his career. And this is one of those things where I think it gives him a little piece of kind of, what he did, what he accomplished during that time, and carries it over to this next challenge. And, and Steve, as far as people who I've covered, who you sit there and listen to and go, yeah, okay, he's on a different level. I mean, Steve is on the short list. And so I think he's probably going to be a very good head coach.
What about with Kyrie Irving? I don't worry about Durant. Kyrie's always the question
Yeah.
mark.
No, he is. I mean, you got the obvious, which is the point guard language that they can speak. And you have Steve's style, which in terms of personality, if anybody was going to be able to withstand, kind of the highs and lows of what come with Kyrie Irving in terms of his makeup and his personality, I think Steve's got that relationship moxie. Now, the power stuff, the when they have tough times stuff, that would be the number one question for me when something really hard has got to be said. How does Steve say it? How does he deliver it? But he's going to be, I do think, a Steve Kerr kind of coach. And so again, the connection between Kevin's Warriors chapter and this one is fascinating. The Kyrie thing, Kyrie's got to fix the optics that surround him. You know what I mean? So he's got a lot on the table too here.
The Rockets advance. What do you think the Lakers' reaction was to last night's result?
I almost feel like LeBron might have been disappointed because his guy, from a personal standpoint, because his guy, Chris Paul, almost shocked the world. I mean, I was watching that game, and Dan, we don't root for anybody, but I got to admit, I'm watching this thing going, wow, like is Chris really going to get his revenge on the Rockets and pull this thing off? I mean, he's kind of talked about this, but people got to understand the degree to which he was upset about that trade. So that would have been a hell of a story. But basketball wise, I honestly, if you're the Lakers, you got to be happy you're not seeing defenders like Luke and Dort, which is something I never thought I would say a couple of months ago. Still barely pronounce the guy's name, and he was incredible last night. You got the Rockets star power, but I don't know. They don't look great. James Harden was terrible in Game 7 offensively. And so, I think if we're doing the old prediction game, I'd probably go, Lakers in 6 type of deal. But, I think the other thing is, Dan, the Lakers have been chilling. Like, they have been hanging out for 3 days. And I went to their practice the other day, and they were very low key and very light. And it's the kind of mood that is pretty tough to come by in the bubble. And I guarantee you that's going to help them tomorrow.
Finish this sentence. If the Rockets had lost last night.
Well, truthfully, I think Mike D'Antoni is very likely gone anyway. So, there's that element. There's certainly just talk around the league about Daryl Morey and, his future, but he's got several years on his contract. That has been, every time I've tried to go straight to the source on that one with the Rockets, that has been shot down, pretty aggressively that he's in trouble. But you have the wild card of Tillman Fertitta, who is an extremely emotional type of owner. The Rockets owner who's been there a few years now, and who has seen a lot of W's, but seen a lot of playoff heartache. So I don't know what they would have done with the roster. James Harden's not going anywhere, and I don't think Russ is either. I think they would probably keep riding it out and just figure out what other kind of around the edge improvements they wanted to make.
We're talking to Sam Amick. He is NBA senior writer for The Athletic. Who's in more trouble, the Milwaukee Bucks or the Toronto Raptors?
I'm going to say the Bucks. They're both in big trouble. The Raptors looked a lot better in game 2, just didn't pull it out. The Bucks honestly look shook to me, and Giannis in particular. It's I'm watching him last night, and it's one of those moments in sports where it's kind of you wish you could be a fly on the wall inside of his own brain and just what is he thinking, because he doesn't look like either he or the group have what it's going to take intensity wise to get this Miami team, because Jimmy Butler is a crazy person and he is showing that right now, and it is contagious. And Bam Adebayo, who honestly I don't spend a ton of time around Miami because I'm based on the West Coast, and I'm just really enjoying watching some of their guys. I mean, Tyler Hero is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
Duncan Robinson. These are a bunch of nobodies in terms of where they came from, and that fits in with Jimmy. And meanwhile, Giannis, even though Giannis has got his own amazing rags to riches story, but the Bucks are the elite squad, and they look like the heavyweight champ that didn't expect a fight like this at all. I think they're in big trouble.
I don't know if you saw the quote from Richard Jefferson, the former NBA player, who said that Giannis is Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, that's a little rough.
Well,
for one, RJ's.
Good luck finding Michael Jordan.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and then there's two sides to that coin, because as we walked out of the arena from that game last night, Gary Washburn and I from Boston Globe were talking, and we were saying, like, the Chris Middleton question, like the age-old question of who do you get Giannis as the number 2? And I'm sitting there going, Chris just had an incredible year. He's 50, 40, 90. This is number 2 stuff. It's just not happening right now. And the other hard part for them, and the hypothetical of, let's say they actually get beat here, is they have created one of the most unique and special cultures in the league, where everybody involved loves the vibe and the culture. That's great. But when it doesn't get you to the result, if you move a Chris Middleton, good luck trying to figure out what that means to Giannis personally and how that impacts the culture. There's just a lot of layers to this thing. And I don't envy, GM John Horst and Coach Mike Budenholzer at all right now. And they downplayed it last night, and I get it. But man, they just acted like this was nothing. Like, okay, it's 2 games. And I'm sitting there going, no, this Heat team is not backing off. So I think they're in trouble.
Yeah, I viewed it the same way. And it's one thing to be a guy who puts up great numbers. There's regular season numbers, and then there's postseason numbers. And I need Chris Middleton to be great in the postseason, just like Anthony Davis. He didn't play any meaningful games. Last meaningful game he had prior to this year was probably at Kentucky in the national title game. Now you come in, hey, I put up all these great numbers. Now can you do it when the spotlight is on you, when everybody is watching everything you do and describing and critiquing everything you do? We see guys who love it, grab it, cherish it, strangle it, and then the other guys who it just consumes them. And that's what I don't know with the Greek Freak or Chris Middleton. We've seen the Raptors step up. Fred VanVleet, he's not afraid. Kyle Lowry's not afraid. Pascal Siakam has not stepped up. Anthony Davis has to step up. Paul George has not stepped up. Kawhi loves this. So you see playoff basketball brings out the best and sometimes the worst in players.
100%. I agree with all that. And to take it back to Giannis, I feel like when I watched him in October, November, and December, he's notorious for being the guy who plays like it's the NBA Finals, even if it's a seeding game, even if it's a preseason game. And his intensity level is always very, very high. So the downside of that is he sets the bar so high on that front that I'm watching him last night and just going, man, like, where it's not there. And it's because he's frustrated. It's because he's seeing a wall of Heat defenders. It's because he can't do what he does. Coach Bud had a line about how Giannis he is being Giannis. And I'm sitting there going, no, he's not. He's not the same guy. This guy acted like it was men amongst boys for most of the year. And he's just running into a wall right now.
Before I let you go, who's in better shape, the Lakers or Clippers, going into the second round?
Both pretty good. I mean, the Lakers getting, I do think they're going to have Rondo back, and that matters. A lot of folks like to kill Rondo and say he's washed and say he's not, but he's part of the solution for them. Him not being there messed up their lineups quite a bit and left them searching in the kinds of ways that killed their shooting. We don't equate Rondo with shooting, but there's, it's a low bar, but him being there is going to be big. So I'll pick the Lakers, but the Clippers are in good shape, and the Kawhi factor, as you kind of alluded to a second ago, is big. It's pretty nice to have that one dude that is not going to be part of any of these conversations about composure or intensity. He's just robotic about it.
There's something, and I brought this up a couple of times, and I don't know if anybody's ever equated Kawhi in the way he plays to music, but there is a jazz feel to him. He's never in a hurry. And there's a easy flow to him that is rare to see in this game, certainly when it comes to the playoffs. You buy into my Thelonious Monk or Miles Davis references?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Shameless plug. A buddy of mine wrote a book, Basketball and Jazz. David Thorpe, a fantastic coach and longtime media personality. And Kawhi does play that way. And like a jazz song, you listen to it and you're mellow and you're enjoying it, you're chilling. And next thing you know, that puppy ramps up and the drums start kicking in. And, and now it's a different vibe and a different level. He's just unflappable, and maybe more so than anybody in the league.
Sam, hope you're doing well. We appreciate your time as always.
You got it. Thanks, Dan. Be
All
good.
right. That's Sam Amick. He writes for The Athletic, NBA senior writer.